Recent developments indicate that a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas, along with the release of detainees, is on the verge of completion. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan announced that negotiations are progressing with finalization expected soon. This development comes amid reports of Israeli soldiers refusing to serve in Gaza due to ethnic concerns over military actions. The humanitarian crisis continues to escalate, with civilians suffering immensely. As the situation evolves, what are the implications of these negotiations for both the immediate humanitarian needs and the long-term political landscape in the region? Welcome to In Depth. Israel and Hamas have reportedly approved the principle of a draft deal to pause the Gaza war and free detainees, with Egypt, US and Qatar mediating. The draft includes a 42-day truce, detainee exchanges and partial Israeli withdrawal, as well as humanitarian aid to Gaza. The National reports that negotiations have focused on key details, with the deal possibly finalized soon. This truce would mark Gaza's first since November 2023. The deal also includes the release of 33 detainees initially, with further exchanges depending on commitment from both sides. The agreement also plans the entry of aid, including food, medicine and fuel, along with housing for displaced residents. The deal could also pave the way for further negotiations about the release of more detainees and prisoners. As the world watches, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan has hinted at a breakthrough in Gaza ceasefire negotiations, with a potential agreement on the horizon. Amid escalating violence and humanitarian crises, hope rises for a truce that could reshape the region's future.
Negotiations for a ceasefire in Gaza are reportedly nearing completion, with U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan indicated that the agreement could be finalized soon. Sullivan stated that the opportunity for a truce and the release of detainees is within reach, although he cautioned that past attempts have fallen short. Discussions are being facilitated by Egypt, Qatar and the US, with key Israeli negotiators remaining in Doha to finalize terms. The proposed agreement includes an exchange of detainees held by Hamas for Palestinian detainees in Israel, which has been a critical aspect of the negotiations. However, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu faces internal pressure from hardliners within his coalition who oppose any ceasefire deal, labeling it a threat to national security. In parallel to these diplomatic efforts, the humanitarian situation in Gaza remains dire. Recent Israeli airstrikes have intensified, resulting in numerous casualties and further complicating the already critical conditions for civilians. Reports have emerged of Israeli soldiers refusing military service in Gaza due to ethical concerns about their actions during the conflict. These soldiers have voiced their discontent over witnessing or participating in operations they believe crossed moral lines. This internal dissent adds another layer of complexity to the ongoing situation. The outcome of these negotiations is pivotal not only for the immediate cessation of violence, but also for addressing the broader humanitarian crisis affecting millions in Gaza. The international community is closely monitoring developments as President Biden's administration seeks to secure an agreement before the transition of President-elect Donald Trump.
For more analysis, we are joined by Dr. Bashir Abdel Fattah, a writer and political researcher from Cairo. And we also have with us Dr. Ayman Al-Waqab, a political science professor from Cairo. Welcome to Qnews and welcome to the program. Professor Abdel Fattah, what guarantees will Hamas receive that Israel will abide by the agreement?
Having me. Indeed, this time all parts are insisting on finalizing the negotiations in order to reach a ceasefire agreement. So I think Hamas and all other parts are trying so much to finish such dilemma in the next few hours, not a few days or few weeks. So Hamas was obliged to present concessions in order to reach the agreement after the strike it had taken from the Israeli army in the last months. That's why they are insisting now to reach the agreement and give concessions after the negotiations in Qatar with the Egyptian mediation.
Professor Al-Waqab, how might the proposed ceasefire agreement impact the ongoing Israeli military operations in the West Bank?
Good afternoon. We expect after continuous efforts for 3 months here in Cairo, we see the ceasefire approaching during the next few hours. We are following up the dialogues happening in Israel and the Netanyahu meetings with the senior officials in the governments. We are very soon, we're gonna see the agreement finalized very soon during the next few hours. In a press conference, we expected it earlier, but obviously it has been postponed by Israel. According to our information, Hamas has reported its acceptance for the deal, for the truce, and the escalation in Gaza meets an escalation in the West Bank, especially that the occupation has taken 24,000 meters from the West Bank recently, and the Oslo agreement states the ruling in the West Bank to the Palestinian Authority in cooperation with the Israeli Authority. 3 months ago, the Oslo Accord was compromised as the entire West Bank was under complete Israeli authority. Only 14% now is under the Palestinian Authority and 86% is under the Israeli Authority. Now the conflict in the West Bank is escalating by building more settlements, and Netanyahu is acknowledging these settlements as part of Israel. And we are concerned with the further escalation in this regard.
Professor Abdel Fattah, how have past ceasefire attempts shaped the current negotiations and trust levels between both parties? And here it's worth to mention, sir, that despite the ongoing negotiations in a ceasefire truce that's taking place, that we have, of course, parties that we all know, which is the United States, Egypt, and Qatar, which are negotiating to end this war in Gaza as soon as possible. Despite this, and finalizing Israeli strikes on Gaza and the Gaza Strip never end.
In fact, Egypt and Qatar played a vital role in the negotiation and the mediation between the Israelis and the Palestinians, especially Hamas movement. But we cannot ignore the American role, either from the administration of President Biden or the interference from the elected President Donald Trump envoy to the territories. So I think Netanyahu could never accept reaching the agreement and give concessions without the American pressures. from both administrations, Biden administration and the Donald Trump administration. So we can say that the cooperation between Egypt, Qatar, and the United States played a vital role in order to reach such agreement in these circumstances. We cannot ignore as well the American support to Netanyahu, because in front of signing this agreement, they will take strategic advantage, according to the lifting the sanctions on the settlements in Israel, and also keeping the military support. In addition to that, they will give Netanyahu permission to resume any military actions against Gaza Strip in the future.
Sir, how do you read the statements or claims by Ben Gvir today, which said, when he said that if this ceasefire takes place, then all the cabinet is resigning?
I don't think that Ben Gvir could put obstacles in front of this agreement, because either Ben Gvir or Smotrich, both of them are condemning, are objecting this agreement. But Netanyahu has a majority, and the opposition parties are trying to save a network of protection, political protection, for Netanyahu in the parliament, in the Knesset, and as well as in the government. So, in case Ben Gvir and Smotrich withdraw from the ruling alliance, the opposition parties could save such network, political network protection to Netanyahu. So if Netanyahu is serious in reaching the agreement, I think he can overcome the threats from Ben Gvir or Smotrich.
Okay, Professor Abdel Fattah, what role does timing play in securing a ceasefire before Trump's inauguration, sir?
I think the timing is very important. We're talking about a critical time, around 47,000 killed and 13,000 students has been killed during these events, and the winter is very cruel in Gaza, so the timing is of high essence for achieving a ceasefire and achieving this truce. Mediators, Cairo and Doha and the White House, the Trump represented in the Trump administration, can reach a complete and permanent ceasefire during this truce. We think the proposal presented today is not valuable without a complete and permanent ceasefire. We're waiting for Donald Trump to assume office, and we hope that the idea of the century deal is not back on the table once more. We really hope that this ceasefire is an opportunity to establish a Palestinian state coexisting peacefully in the region. We are optimistic for the situation in the region. After the ceasefire, we will have great horizons for peace. And I think that the conflict in the region will not be, and the situation in the region will not be dominated by one person. So the timing of the ceasefire is highly important to be achieved before Trump assumes office.
Why, sir, before Trump assumes office?
because there was Trump in the White House calling for stopping the wars in the region. He is working to take advantage of the momentum of everyone seeking peace at the moment, and that was clarified in the summit in Riyadh last November. The necessity, all parties stressed the necessity of a Palestinian state coexisting peacefully in the region, and I think this is an opportunity for Trump to complete his project that he started before about peace. He has to consider granting peace to the Palestinian people. Without this happening, all of his project will be to no avail.
Got your point, sir. Professor Raqab, how might the outcome of these negotiations impact U.S.-Israel relations with the Trump administration? Professor Raqab? How might the outcome of these negotiations impact U.S.-Israel relations with the Trump administration, sir?
As we have followed up after the call yesterday between Netanyahu and Biden, also the calls with President Trump, we have seen the presence of senior officials in the regions. Consecutive meetings took place and a lot of leaders took place in the negotiations. We've seen U.S. promises for Netanyahu to keep him in office. The elites in Israel we are concerned that the price of these negotiations will be the West Bank. And these were promises stated by Trump to use his influence in the region. Now we have the Trump team working in the region who are aware of all of the details of the conflict, and they have paid a lot of visits to different regions in the Palestinian territories. We expected that Trump will not support this agreement, that Biden would not support this agreement, but by the Witkoff visit to the region, that was a sign of hope, and the Trump administration, the Trump team working on the negotiation will be the ones attending the press conference to announce the ceasefire agreement.
Great, sir. Professor Abdel Fattah, what challenges does Netanyahu face from his coalition regarding the ceasefire?
No doubt that Netanyahu is facing challenges from his coalition, especially from the extremist religious Zionist parties like Benekir and Smotrich. But I think Netanyahu can have support from the grassroots in Israel, and especially the families of the Israeli captives in Gaza. In addition to that, the Israeli political opposition, some political parties declared that they can provide a political protection network from a coalition of some parties to support Netanyahu after signing this agreement. And in case the extremist Zionist parties withdraw from the ruling coalition. So I don't think that the threats of Benekir or Smotrich could oblige Netanyahu to give up or to not to sign the ceasefire agreement, because the political opposition declared its support to Netanyahu in order to finalize negotiations by signing this agreement.
How might a successful ceasefire affect regional stability in the Middle East, sir?
In order to stabilize ceasefire, you need a guarantee to this agreement. Egypt, Qatar, and the United States are guarantee for this agreement. And I think we can build or we can depend on Trump administration because the only state worldwide could put pressure on Netanyahu is the Americans. And the Americans, Netanyahu could listen to Trump and the Americans. And I think that Trump is keen on the success of this agreement.
Professor Abdel Fattah, are you optimistic about this ceasefire? As you mentioned at the beginning of this episode, that it should take place in hours and days, and it shouldn't take longer. Are you optimistic, sir?
No, unfortunately, no.
Why, sir?
Yeah, because this agreement will be like the Lebanon-Israeli agreement. It will be a bilateral or unilateral agreement. The Israelis will not implement this agreement only for some days or some hours in order to restore the Israeli detainee or captives in Gaza. After Netanyahu restore the captives and the body for the dead captives, he will resume firing Gaza again.
Okay, sir. Professor Abdel Fattah, why are you comparing this ceasefire and the violations that are taking place in Lebanon to the ceasefire that's taking place in Gaza now, which are not related? It's only Israel that's the common factor. And yes, Israel violates every single agreement, and we abide to the fact that it's violating and it continues to violating. But why do you think, in light of all these very intensive efforts by international partners like the United States, like Egypt, like Qatar in Doha, which are taking place now, and they're very intense. Why do you think that Israel is going to violate this ceasefire? Although I asked you again, strikes and citizens in Gaza are taking place every day.
Because Netanyahu doesn't believe in peace and ceasefire. He only believes in power and more power, not peace or negotiations or something like this. And also, he would like to liquidate the Palestinian issue. And he wants to restore the deterrence relation between Israel and its enemies around in the region, either in Lebanon or in Gaza or in Yemen, Syria, Iraq, elsewhere. So I don't think that he believes in peace. He only try to take advantage from this agreement, the unilateral agreement. He can resume firing anytime, striking South Lebanon, Gaza, anywhere, but he would like to be seen as a peace maker. He don't like to be condemned from the international community that he put obstacles in front of the peace process. But indeed, he will never believe in peace.
Sir, what are the specific phases outlined in the agreement, especially regarding Israeli troop withdrawals?
There is a gradual Israeli withdrawal from Gaza Strip. It will be gradual. But I think Netanyahu will keep the right to interfere again in Gaza in case of threats, military threats or security threats from the sector. And he has the right to classify threats if it is worthy military intervention again or not.
Okay, sir. To my knowledge, of course, the deal is there are many stages that should be implemented in a timeline that is already set, sir. Of course, we all here wish that the ceasefire, of course, takes place, and that was Dr. Bashir Abdel Fattah, a writer and political researcher, and Dr. Ayman Al-Raqab, a political science professor. Thank you very much for your valuable knowledge and your insights. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of In Depth. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more updates and Qnews.